a government council member of Sakshi, he brings his expertise and influence to drive critical conversations on gender justice and social change. His commitment to impactful storytelling and his dedication to create meaningful content have made a lasting impact on both the entertainment industry and social advocacy. Please join me in welcoming Sandeep sir.
Hi everyone. It looked like she was talking about someone else. But like in all, we're talking art and content. So all content these days have disclaimers. So I think I need to start with a disclaimer. Disclaimer one, I have zero memory, so I've got a piece of paper. Disclaimer two is that Sakshi does some really meaningful work, and I'm from the business of entertainment. So I'm an understudy at Sakshi, still trying to figure out stuff. And hopefully someday I'll be able to merge doing great work and doing it in an entertaining and engaging way. I think it's a class that I've been taking for 7 years and I'm still an understudy. So today we're going to discuss, the focus is art that dares to speak. So in a world where silence often shrouds trauma, innovative approaches are essential to spark conversations, challenges stigma, and promote healing. But what truly has the power to break a silence? And I think that's the question that we are asking each other, is that we have laws, we have policies, we have information, and yet sexual abuse remains one of the most underreported crimes in the world. Survivors continue to be silenced, not just by fear, and I think that's the part which is so sad, not just by fear, but by the discomfort of those around them. So what works? Think about history. Think about every moment when societies have been unwilling to confront uncomfortable truths. What finally made them look? Not just laws, not just statistics, it was art. Art has always been the bridge between knowledge and emotion. And it tells us, it just doesn't tell us something, it makes us feel it. And once you feel something, you can't ignore it anymore. Eastern wisdom speaks of connections, how nothing exists in isolation, how every problem, every system, every human experience is a part of a larger web. Art operates in the same way. It connects the personal to the collective, the invisible to the seen, the silent to the spoken. A film doesn't just depict injustice, it immerses you in it. A play doesn't just narrate trauma, it makes you experience it. A song doesn't just protest, it unites voices into one. That is why we're here today, to explore art that dares to speak. Because trauma thrives in isolation, but healing begins with connection. And art is perhaps the most powerful connection we have. So let's continue, let's listen, and let's see where this journey takes us. Thank you everyone for being here.
Okay, thank you, Sanjeev sir. These stories we see on screen and on stage and in art influence the way we understand the world. When it comes to child sexual abuse, these portrayals have the power to inform, challenge stigma, and encourage action. But at the same time, they can also misrepresent, trivialize, or reinforce dangerous misconceptions. How do films, theater, and art shape public perception of child sexual abuse? What impact do these narratives have on survivors and their ability to seek justice? Where do artistic expression and ethical responsibility intersect? This discussion will explore these critical questions and examine how media can tell these stories with greater responsibility. We are honored to have a distinguished panel with us today, bringing perspectives from cinema, theatre, advocacy, and media. I'd like to introduce the panelists now and call them up on stage. First, we have Ms. Smita Bharti, ma'am. She is the Executive Director of Sakshi. She's also dedicated to tackling gender inequality and sexual violence. And beyond her organizational leadership, ma'am emerges as a distinguished poet and playwright. Her extensive body of work highlights prevailing social disparities and oppression. Her endeavors have borne remarkable fruits with over 30 plays and web series. Next, we have Kirit Khurana, sir. Sir is an award-winning filmmaker with 6 national awards. Kirit sir also directed Komal, a powerful film on child sexual abuse. With over 550 ad films and 25 award-winning shorts, he continues to push boundaries in impactful storytelling. Next, we have Sohela Kapoor, ma'am. So ma'am is a renowned actor, playwright, and director. Sohela ma'am has starred in The Family Man and Arya. Her theatre work, including Mahim Junction, explores deep societal themes, earning critical acclaim. Next, we have Insia Dariwala. She's an award-winning writer, director, child rights advocate, and she has pioneered many creative campaigns that have created a huge impact on the ground, including the first ever photo campaign on male child sexual abuse, which went on to amend. It also amended a child rights legislation in India, making it gender neutral. She's also the founder of 2 NPOs, the Hand of Hope's Foundation and Sahiyo. While one deals with the sensitive issue of child sexual abuse, the other solely focuses on ending the practices of female genital cutting in her community. Next, we have Shailajit Mitra. Sir is a film critic with The Hindu, known for his sharp analysis of Hindi cinema and beyond. With years of experience covering and evolving narratives of films, he brings a deep insight into storytelling and industry. And next we have Nivedita Basu. She's a creative force in Indian television, and Nivedita was a key figure at Balaji Telefilms and Atrangi. And as a producer and content strategist, she continues to shape impactful narratives in entertainment. And next we have Aishwarya. Please. She's a passionate artist and activist. They also use theatre and film to address gender-based violence. And as a former student leader at TIS, they believe in the power of art for societal change. Thank you for joining us. And the moderator for today's panel is Naomi Joy. Naomi is the gender content head at Sakshi and holds a master's degree in gender studies. With a keen interest in cinema and masculinity, she brings a unique and insightful perspective to today's conversation. Over to you.
Thank you, Vaishali. And thank you, everyone, for being over here. Let's be honest. Most of us learned about these issues through film, through stories, through art. The ones we were told as children, the ones we watched on screen, the ones we grew up talking about. So let's begin. I would like to hear the panelists' opinion on the play we just watched, Ghat Ghat Mein Panchi Bolta Hai. We have the writer, director of it over here, Smita ma'am. And I think I'll start with you, Nivedita.
Firstly, thank you, Smita, for having me. In fact, when she told me that you have to come and speak, I said, very rarely do we represent, CSA on television because of whatever the norms are. But it was lovely to see her play, and that was pretty direct, I told her, and I happen to know a few actors on it. I think Smita has a very nice way of expressing what she wants to, and she herself being strong and representing and having this foundation called Sakshi. I think it's quite commendable, and it's actually a learning for me that how I would take this, to my medium when I have to do content for OTT and television, because it is a subject which, I mean, we've seen not just in television, we've experienced through our friends, we've heard it, and it's always a very frivolous sort of a conversation whenever we have that. Okay, we have somebody in the house, we've had this, we've gone through a lot, and most of the time it's just like mocked within our friends and groups. So today when I saw this, and I mean the way Sandeep was, and you suddenly realize that okay, we do know a lot of people, not just 1 in 5, probably 3 in 5, who have in some way experienced that. And to have a play like this, I think it kind of just opens your eyes and that okay, this is how you see it, and this is what you have to notice, when you're identifying or listening to somebody who's sharing this. So I think congratulations, Smita.
Yeah, Smita, thank you for having me here as well. And I would like to begin by saying that it was very triggering, the play. And like we always say that art triggers difficult dialogue. So I think this play of yours does have that power, that people are going to walk out of here thinking about it, going out and talking about it. So I feel blessed that I got to witness it, and thank you. Thank you for making this. I always felt that I was alone on this journey, and the more I am getting deeper into this space, it just feels nice that creativity is being used so much. So thank you so much.
I felt the play was really heartfelt. The dialogues and the way the characters were developed. Smita just didn't write it for the sake of writing it. I think she felt every line emotionally. I know Smita for a long time, so I could see that, and I know it's heartfelt. And what I found really interesting was the point of view of the pedophile, because, we're so ready to judge people, it's either left or right or black and white. No. Everybody has a point, even if somebody is a culprit. Why is he a culprit? You've got to think something, you've got to go deep into it. There's something wrong in society that develops people like that. Something in the upbringing, something that this man was lacking, that he was latching on to children. So I liked what Sandeep did very well, and thank you for inviting me. It's very, very thought-provoking, Smita. I'm moved, I can tell you that. And I love the way she used dance. All the dancers were given movements, and the ones who were singing with good voices used their voices. So it became a kind of a multimedia project, but I didn't look at it technically like that. I just felt the whole thing together was very moving. Thank you.
My apologies. I just came in about 15 minutes before it ended, so I was not very connected because I met my old friend Sanjeev, and we got talking a bit while in whispers, obviously, and while the plays were still going on. But what I gathered from it and what impressions I have of the last few minutes that I saw the performances, I thought they were extremely passionate, and I was wondering why is it just being played in a very select audience here, which does not need to be preached about. You don't need to talk to them about CSA. I think plays like this need to go out there. They need to be street plays. They need to be performed in every single nook and corner. And the people need to participate, and people need to understand. It needs to be more interactive. And I felt like this is a wonderful thing, but it needs to reach out to a much, much wider audience and to be effective and to really create the awareness and impact that we are wanting to achieve with CSA.
Hello everyone. I had a wonderful time watching the play. Much of my time is spent in movie theaters and in front of screens, but theater has this, direct immersive quality, and you have a direct connection with the performance that I always find wonderful. And it is also a pleasure to watch Swarupa Ghosh, in person and watching her on stage. One of my complaints about cinema in general that address complex issues of trauma, intergenerational trauma, of abuse, is the victim perpetrator kind of a binary that cinema often falls into, sometimes for narrative reasons, sometimes to give characters a motivation for something they're doing, a revenge they're seeking, or an explanation for something. The ability to use the medium to portray intergenerational trauma in a more kaleidoscopic way, I feel, where you see the psychology, how it shapes a family and people who are linked up and bound up to. It's very non-linear, and that's comforting, and that's also confronts us with the lesser dimensions of this topic that we don't get into, and which I think is the responsibility of art, because it has that penetrative power to get into spaces which traditional discourse cannot. So I enjoyed that about the play.
Hi, good evening, everyone. It was a privilege watching your play, ma'am. Thank you so much for inviting me here. So I think what struck me the most about the play was the grief that every character had weaved into their story. I think that is also because of my relationship with grief, perhaps. I also loved how you talked about how intoxicating abuse can be, and how sometimes there's this sort of romanticization with abuse that tends to happen. And that is something I could relate to on a personal level as well, because I was also in a relationship like that. I feel like as a theater artist, theater is a very confrontational medium. And what you did also in the play was confrontation throughout, but there was the lack of the perpetrator per se, like there was an absence. But towards the end, he shows up. So it was very beautifully, it flowed very beautifully, and I really enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
All right. So moving to film, I would like to ask Mr. Kirit. Your film Komal has educated millions about child sexual abuse. You have written Komal. What ethical considerations did you take into account while making this film, and how did you ensure that the message was accessible yet impactful?
So with Komal, actually, Komal was a commission film. Although when I say commission means it didn't cover costs. It just paid for a little bit of the cost of production. But it was important that it came from an NGO, a reputed NGO, like Childline, which was constantly dealing with child sexual abuse, right? And they had this thick, fat manual on CSA, child sexual abuse, and the do's and don'ts, and the data and the statistics and everything. And they wanted that entire manual of what is good touch, bad touch, and what are the circumstances, what is grooming, what is the entire process of how a typical perpetrator or typical abuser, how he goes about grooming an unsuspecting child, and how CSA occurs. And they wanted me to make a film on that. So the first thing I told them was that, of course, I will read the whole thing, but the idea is that if I'm not going to make a film on the manual. I'm going to make a film that actually touches the heart. And one of the things that I do is, in making my films, is that I write with my heart in my sleeve. And that is important, that when we are making films, if you are not feeling the pain of the characters, if you're not empathizing with them, you're not able to relate to them, and you're not able to feel their grief, their pain, their trauma, then if you're not feeling it as a filmmaker, there's no chance the audience is going to feel it. If you're feeling it as a filmmaker, and if you're reasonably good in your craft, then maybe the audience will feel it, maybe. But the imperative is for you to feel it first. And over the course of the film, there were many corrective steps that were taken, because Childline was constantly guiding me that this is not to be shown, this is to be shown, this is not to be shown, we can't do that. Luckily, we used the medium of animation. So animation, you can get away with a lot more. Like, you can't show the actual act of the sexual abuse in a live action film, but in an animation film, it doesn't appear all that gruesome. And there was a big debate in that film with the entire Childline team, and I stood my ground and I said, if we don't show the act, then a child who the film is intended to. The film is intended for the children, and if you don't show the act, the child will never know what the film is all about and what exactly are they supposed to be wary of, or what are they supposed to protect themselves from. So the act is something that I put in the film despite strong reservations by the Childline team, and they did a research and they showed it around, and luckily it turned out that what I had a hunch about was correct, which is that if you didn't show the act because it was purportedly gruesome, according to me it was toned down, and it was done in a way that it would obviously make the child not scared, but it would actually make the child aware of what was happening, but at the same time it was not traumatic because of the medium of animation. And so I think that rail guards that Childline provided me were being used to make sure that the communication is absolutely, spot on, and that was important for us.
Thank you. Insia, I would like to talk to you about Candyman. One of the scenes that struck me, so I'll give a little context. So, Candyman was the first fiction film in India to highlight male child sexual abuse. And in that, the victim of child sexual abuse is the son of the perpetrator. My question is that scene where the son is sick and obviously not accessible to the predator, he sends the daughter, and that is when the mother reacts. So can you speak about that a little more? I would like to know your thoughts behind that.
So that's a question that I get asked very often, that why did the mother react? So y'all have not seen the film, but please do go watch it. It's on YouTube. It's called The Candyman. If you can put my name with it, it's better, because otherwise you'll get a lot of porn films. For some reason, a lot of porn films were called The Candyman. But to answer your question, I think we as a society are so used to seeing abuse in the context of girls, child sexual abuse. And when we talk about it, so when my film was being written, I was working at Applause Entertainment at that time, and this was, I was so bored with what was happening at Applause at that time, and this is not the Applause that Samin Nair has, taken over, it's before that. That I started writing the script. And when I started writing, it was with the point of view of a girl being abused. And so why girl? Why girl? Because even I went through it. So that veil that only girls are abused. But when I started researching about it, I met many guys. There were friends who said, "Mere saath mein bhi aisa hua hai." But the way they said it, the way the boy said it, was so casual. It was like, "Haan, to theek hai na," rite of passage. That's what they called it. And that hit me really hard. And so I went back to the drawing board. And I always call The Candyman, it's not an intentional film, it's an intuitional film for me. Because I chose to now show male child sexual abuse because of the fact that it was so trivialized. And when I went on the net and did a research about how many boys were sexually abused in India, it's more than girls, the percentage. It's 53%. That was shocking for me. And so, it was like somebody has to talk about this. And I was lucky and I was blessed. That was my first film. And I got a producer for it. And everything, just happened so well. So in that scene of the mother, I think that is what she was operating from. So I had to show the stereotype also, that when she knew about the boy, I'm sure everybody who works in the space of child sexual abuse knows this, and I have seen this, heard this at police stations, that ladka to pregnant nahi ho sakta hai na. So, theek hai, he'll get over it. And that's the reaction that we have for girls, because that's the only thing that is different, right? So, yeah.
Thank you. So, Hela ma'am, I would like you to go next. How do you use performance to shed light on CSA and as an actor? And what challenges do you face ensuring that it's relayed in a way which ensures dignity and respect to the story or to the performer who is performing or the whose story is being portrayed?
I'm afraid I haven't done any role, I haven't been offered any role where CSA is involved. But how would I do it? I I would feel the character. I would try and understand the feelings of the character and portray it as truthfully as possible without embellishing it with melodrama or even underplaying it. For me, it's not cerebral. If I start thinking about it, it's a performance. It has to be something natural. That's what I want myself to be when I appear on the screen. Be the character, feel the character, be one with the character, don't perform it. That's the way I look at it. Yeah, Smita and I said we go back as friends and theatre pals for many years. We did a play called Tattoo. This was around 15 years ago. It was a German play which was translated. And it was for that time, very shocking theme. It was based on that Austrian man. If any you youngsters wouldn't know about it, but there was an Austrian man who had imprisoned his daughter in his basement, and he produced 7 children out of her. He kept her imprisoned. So this German author wrote a play based on that experience, and where the father was abusing the elder daughter, and she was just accepting and taking it. Why? Because she didn't want it to be perpetrated on her younger sister. She was saving her sister from the trauma. So when we performed, first of all, I had a very difficult time with the daughters, the 2 daughters playing the roles, and one of them walked off and said, I can't do it, because it's kind of wrecking me. I keep thinking about it when I go home, because I have a father. When I face my father, I have strange thoughts, and I don't want that. Then finally she came back, she understood. I explained to her that, we have to show society that, and if actors don't do it, who will? She performed. Many people in the auditorium left. They got up and left and said, "Ye to hota hi nahi hai. This is ridiculous. What are they showing us?" Also because they were shocked that a father, a blood father, the real father of the person can actually perpetrate this. After about a few months, there was a news in many Indian newspapers about an Indian man who sexually assaulted his daughter, and it continued for 2 years. This news hit the headlines and people were shocked. And after that, there were many pieces of news. Somewhere the barricade was removed, the taboo was removed, and newspapers were reporting them. Fine. When we had our next show, what I did was I got photographs of those clippings, and that's how I made the cover of my brochure. That what you're saying is not a figment of the author's imagination, nor does the director want to titillate you just to get seats filled. It's just the opposite. You people are walking off. This is reality. And that's how Tattoo, was performed several times. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. Aishwarya, you worked at the intersection of feminist and queer representation in theatre and student spaces. So how do you think that art can be used to challenge the dominant narratives around CSA? So the first level is कि उसकी बात ही नहीं होती है, and the second is that there is a dominant narrative about it. So how do you think theatre and art can challenge that?
Okay. So for context, I am an MA student. I am doing development studies at TIS Mumbai. I am also a theatre artist and I've acted in a film. So I just felt like giving an introduction to myself. this is something that we also were discussing before the panel started. And because we are also talking about male child sexual abuse, I wanted to share my story, which is of when I was younger, I was abused by a girl. So then the perpetrator also, the gender of the perpetrator also has to be questioned here. And for a lot of people, because I think Sir mentioned about grooming. In queer culture, grooming is also a very large phenomenon, and that keeps happening. So I think for the first line, there's lack of representation, I think, and I think more younger people who want to create more intersectional art should come up, and they should definitely make films on their phones and everything. I wrote my first play 2 years ago in Delhi, and yeah, I think I also want to get back to art, and I have been doing my research around it. So research and art go together for me. Now coming to your main question. So short answer is art replicates life and life replicates art. But also something that Gangs of Wasipur में one character says that Bollywood ने सब पूरी इंडिया की जनता का दिमाग खराब कर रखा है. But at the same time, there's also a pedestalization of art forms. Long answer would be that I think how cinema and art in India function is in a democratic setting. The context is very democratic. So there is hero worship, there is a politics to art, there is a politics to the heroism that artists have to go through. There are fan clubs that are created that are dominated by a certain misogyny, a certain patriarchal mindset. And it happens in all states and all regional cinema areas as well. So yeah, I think contextualizing art becomes very important. You have to question art while pedestalizing it. There's a responsibility of the artist to engage in those conversations, and there's also the responsibility of the audience to engage and counter question whatever is being told to them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I'd like to, Smita ma'am, we just saw the play right now, and I was thinking about the fact, what were your ethical considerations when you made the play? Because like Inzia ma'am said, it was triggering for her. So what was going through your mind when you were making this play? And again, that line between how to evoke empathy and awareness while also not triggering.
So there are two levels. One is the level at which when you write, and then there is a level in which you frame. They're two separate processes, right? And this play emerged during COVID, when there was a spike. And it happened as a Zoom play, when I got actors together on Zoom, and we did it for audiences, like we rehearsed on Zoom, and we performed on Zoom when we had mini shows on Zoom. You know, Suhaila also performed in one of those Zoom shows as Taramma. You know, so when you're writing, it's just like Suhaila, you said, living out the whole space, right? And the living out of the whole space is not a fictional space. I think it's a reality for most of us, since it's 1 in 2. Then 50% sitting on this panel itself are survivors. And it's an experience which is coming in from life, and it's an experience which has been framed from the work that I have been doing ever since for the last 30 years. So the writing happened from an experience and a reality, and then came the framing, right? Can I say this? Can I not say this? How much can I say? Whose point of view am I putting in? Have I done an intersectional layering? Have I looked at all perspectives? Have I looked at the layers of harm that come up because of one single incident or one single aspect of child sexual abuse? That experience is not limited to just the two of them, but what are the ripple effects, and where do they go, and who are the people who are actually experiencing it, because they have their own universe, and within that universe is one big stone, also comes in, and how does that stone unravel all the things that they have buried inside themselves. How much can I say? What can I say about it? So those are the framings that come at the second layer. And yes, even if you say nothing, like you had this huge fight that you had about whether you want to show the act or not. So I had that huge battle inside me, whether we want to speak out those things or not. And it will be triggering for many of us who have experienced it and the rest of us who have witnessed it. We cannot take that away, because in our country, we do not talk about the trauma. Forget healing. We haven't processed the trauma. We haven't become mature as a people who are actually capable of accepting and not stepping out of denial and shame and stigma, and accept that this is something that is happening in our backyards and our homes and in our living rooms and our drawing rooms and our bedrooms, let alone be able to process that experience for ourselves and for the others. So much as I know we shouldn't be doing things which are triggering, but if we have to disrupt the status quo, then some casualties are inevitable.
Thank you. Thank you. Shilajit, as a film critic, what films do you believe have done justice to the portrayal of child sexual abuse, and which one do you think have failed?
Unfortunately, so my domain is primarily mainstream Hindi cinema. That's what I write about. And unfortunately, mainstream cinema has largely failed in India to address child sexual abuse at a level of complexity and depth and empathy that is warranted of a subject of its nature. Having said that, there have been efforts, there have been films that have had CSA as a subplot driving the narrative, and that probably has helped people address it. Monsoon Wedding comes to mind, Imtiaz Ali's Highway comes to mind. Highway actually deals with it, I think goes as far as I have seen a mainstream film go. But there are films on the fringes that have rather radically addressed this subject. 2 years ago, there's a film called Nocturnal Burger by Reema Maya, that I think one of the more mature, more intersectional, more powerful works that I've seen on the subject. Unfortunately, I don't think it's streaming right now in India. It's is it? You know? Yeah, so yeah, that tells its own story, but I wish more people could see it. It's a tremendous work. It's a deeply felt and a deeply psychological work. I think I'll just build on a thread that I was talking about, that to use abuse as just a trope or something isolated in time, that becomes a huge failing of the medium of storytelling. It exists in a continuum, and it exists in a space that is unbroken, and cinema has the power to address that, and that's one of the short films that comes to mind that address that. At a more accessible level, there was a film called Ribbon 7-8 years ago. I just started writing on cinema professionally, and I was very touched by that film. A simple story of an urban couple, and so it's not an issue film. I mean, a lot of it is not positioned as an issue film. It begins rather like a love story between two people who meet in a city and build a life. They have a child, and later something happens towards the end. So you never are confronted. You never sit with the spectacles of, I'm watching an issue film. So that's something mainstream films have to break, that when you're addressing CSA, when you're addressing abuse, not to frame your narratives as issue films, but to make them accessible to people, and through characters, through the empathy, to have even humor, color, to have a restorative quality also in these films. So Ribbon and Nocturnal Burger, I'll highly recommend people to watch from in India. And there's some work of Western television that are warming up to abuse very strongly. Baby Reindeer came out on Netflix. It was a sensation. But the show I'll recommend is I May Destroy You, the British black comedy, which is terrifying. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Nivedita, as a producer, I think market often demands the creative choices, like what. So how do you navigate the tension between, like commercial viability and ethical responsibility?
Okay, Shilajit, I think you missed out on Kahani 2. I think Kahani 2 was purely based on child sexual abuse. You haven't seen that?
I have seen. I'll amend it. Yeah.
Okay. So that was one film, in fact, I thought, which was very hard hitting and quite commercial. But unfortunately, you wonder when you hit subjects like this, and even though you try to make it commercial, when they don't do well, you wonder if, you should make subjects which, because at the end of the day, the person who's funding it, the first thing they want is like, is it a hit? So after having done television for 25 years, so we have done, I have done a lot of CSA, but I've done it on the crime side of it. I've done Jaganya Prad, I've shown a lot of stories for male and females who've gone through CSA, or I've done Crime Beat and Crime Alert on Dangal. So we've done a lot of those, but if you say purely on this, if I've touched it, so we might have played it, but they've not become the center of the show. It's not like the prime. I don't even know if we can, because what happens is when you're catering on a television base, what happens is that you're catering to the masses, so they have to, like, I don't want people to squirm and like walk away, like she said in the play. We don't want that. We wanting to make subjects which are entertaining while they're giving a social message out. So probably find a better way to lace it in our stories and make it commercially successful, because only then will these issues be, like, taken into consideration when we are making content. So I would love to do that. Like I said, while NC was talking, I was remembering, I said, how many episodes we've done of, males also going through it. In Jaganya Prad, I've done it as females also. But I was just trying to think from Kyunki to everything, like, have we done it? We've not really done it, but we have touched it. We did have a character called Mayank when he attempts a rape, on Gauri. So it's like a very hidden sort of thing. So he did go through a lot of torture as a child, but we didn't play on it. We just showed that he was mentally disturbed, and then of course we didn't go into the delving part of it, why. But if you see the underlying this thing, what the reason was that, and which is why, we're playing with all the red herrings, and then you come to know, oh my God, the most underdog guy who we didn't really suspect to be that. Like Smita said, that she made this play in lockdown, because one thing I was wondering, I always come to theatre and I want to, like, it's quite commendable how you all do it. But when she said that she made it in lockdown, because I was wondering, I said all characters are there, but all are doing like their monologues, separately. Why not? Why are they not like thrown with each other and kind of interacting that, why did you do it? Why aren't you not addressing your husband that while I was here, why were you doing it with nothing? But theatre is obviously done very interestingly. And like I said, television, in fact, OTT now is a little more boisterous when it comes to making subjects known, and I think I won't be surprised if somebody actually takes it up and does it. But television, I think, will have to still do it, like I said, when I did it in a Kyunki, or even a Agle Janam, Bitiya, or even a Balika Vadhu might have somewhere like played with these subjects, but they'll have to continue doing it subtly, because unfortunately television just changes 5%, over 10 years. So you can just subtly play these things, kind of underline them a little more and take it, but you can't make it like the center of everything, because unfortunately those shows don't do well. So probably as a Jaganya Prad or a Crime Alert, it did very well. In fact, those stories rated also very well. Maybe because people like sensationalism, and when Smita's team shared that what should it be, sensationalism or letting the subjects. Unfortunately in India, like, sensationalism is everything. So you don't want to highlight this, and like they said, people have gone through it, not gender specific. It's quite sensitive. When we do it, we purely do it कि drama चाहिए, audience चाहिए, rating चाहिए. तो उन सब चीज़ों को ध्यान में रख के, if we can make something which is successful, I think it'll be a feat for us. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And now, as we come to the end of this thought-provoking discussion, I'd like to invite each of our panelists to give their closing remarks. I think we'll start with you.
Yes. You spoke first.
I know. Well, so it's very difficult to end something like that, because I'm actually happy that the conversation has begun here, and this is a new audience for me, because I'm always in front of, podiums where there are academicians and, psychologists. Yeah, so we can do that. And I will just say that it's very heartening for me to be here today and have so many people from the industry and see so much creativity being put. In fact, when Nivedita was just talking about it, what came to mind for me was Rana Naidu, the OTT show, the series. I don't know how many of you have watched, but very smartly, a very, like testosterone driven show, which had so much of galis in it and was very massy, had a whole track of male child sexual abuse in there with one of the main characters. So I would say that just for all of us, including me, I just want to keep doing this work that I'm doing through my creativity, whether it's, my poetry that I was supposed to say, but I couldn't today. I forgot to bring my book. Or any medium. And I have done a play too, Smita, and maybe one day I will invite you for it. It's called Boldo. And it started as a street play, but now we have done 25 shows in colleges, and we have an outreach of more than 10,500 children. So I am so glad to be here, and I can't see all of you. It's dark. But thank you so much. And I will just say that when you walk out from here today, if you could just open up the conversation within your own homes, because it's so important for us to keep the conversation going. Kirit was saying that why is Smita's play not out there? And I totally agree with it, because it's like all of you sitting here are interested in this issue, and it's preaching to the choir, more or less. But out there, this shows these plays have to go. And maybe if enough of you talk about this, what happened here today, we might actually get a push. So just keep doing it. Thank you so much. You finish.
Okay, firstly, I think it was great to hear all of you speak. You all are like so accomplished, and it was almost like I was a student and I wanted to ask questions to all 6 panelists. But I think that's what theatre also does. When you come for plays like this, it kind of just opens up your eyes, and we know of it, but we don't really talk about it. So I think me as a content creator, for me, what I take back home is that how do you kind of weave things into it, like Aishwarya said कि बोलते बॉलीवुड सब खराब कर देता है, तो बॉलीवुड कुछ अच्छा भी कर दे तो अच्छी चीज़ है कि अभी इनफैक्ट अच्छा करता है. why people are addicted to it is that there are good things also happening, but things like these which probably are not on a larger scale, and because Bollywood or television or OTT now is predominantly like more I don't know, actually, I don't have the consensus of how popular they are over theatre. But somebody like me who watches theatre very rarely and mostly on occasions where usually our friends are hosting it or directing, we happen to go. But I have like this moral responsibility that if I have to do something, I want to do it sensitively. I want to probably discuss with the panelists here how to take this subject and yet make it entertaining, because like I said, how much ever or whatever you do, the moment it becomes preachy, people disconnect, especially my audience. So without doing that, if I'm able to do it, it'll be great. And I look forward to actually watching. Every time Smita would invite me, I'm like, why am I missing? And today I'm like so glad I made it, and now it leaves this thing to me that I want to go watch more of her stuff, because it just opens up your mind. Otherwise it's quite we're quite narrow-minded when it comes to what we discuss, the same masala. But like she said, from a masala also, something like Rana Naidu also had this thing to talk about. So probably we also have to notice what we've already made and not underline, and probably underline it a little more. So I think that is what I want to say as my closing line.
Can I just add something to what Nivedita said? So Nivedita, I have written for television also, and I have written commercial for films also. Now, the thing what I noticed is, if you really want to make that change, because you have the power to do so, so I'll address you on this. I think there is a need for sensitization within the organization. There is a need for sensitization about what this is. What is gender violence? What is child sexual abuse? Because when I went to pitch a show at a very big channel, they didn't know I'm a survivor of abuse, and my protagonist, both the male and female of the show, had gone through their share of abuse. And they sat there and they told me, "Nee, but how can a boy who's abused fall in love?" And I was like, What are you talking about? So it is so important for them to know in order to pass something. So please have some workshops.
I agree with the Nivedita and Insia that people have to be sensitized. You know, when you're pitching your subject, when you go to these channels, you know, they have a kind of a straight-jacketed format. Everything has to fall into that. So, you know, they have to open their minds. They're too terrified of losing their audience. Somebody has to take that initiative. They can at least try. I feel that way. And as far as theatre is concerned, there should be more and more stories about child sexual abuse and abuse that happens in the family against women also. So I think a lot more writing work has to go in, whether it's films or it's television or whether it's theatre. We need to take an initiative in that and do much more.
I think sitting here has been a huge learning experience, and it's. I remember when we were doing improv in college, we gave a task to our first years, and we said, "Okay, show us a scene where abuse is happening," and they showed us a very graphic, violent, almost voyeuristic scene. They put up an improv, and we immediately went and talked to them, and I think that's where a lot of learning and unlearning is is what requires. That's what the time is for now. I have been someone who has grown up watching mainstream media, very sensationalized media. सावधान रहें, सतर्क रहें. But when I diversified my palette, I also started diversifying. I don't know, it felt like I'm unlocking parts of my brain, and now I'm able to think more differently. So while the mainstream media continues to do what it does, you know, there is the makeup industry which wants the women to look a little like a baby, which there's an age gap between the male and the female protagonist. It creates a power hierarchy in like intimacy and who you're attracted to, and I feel like children fall at the lowest rung of it, and it's very important that we're talking about children today, and because legally we have also ensured that line that okay, this is it, this is where we draw the line. And I feel like whenever we create art about something so sensitive, it's like a courtroom almost. You are creating a narrative and you have to do justice to every character, and you have to do representational justice to every character. I think in the end I would just like to say that Yuval Noah Harari is the recent philosopher, so to say, in his book is saying that the core of humanness right now is storytelling. We are storytellers, that's who we are. And I think as long as the spark of connection and the will to connect to each other remains, I think we will keep defying the mainstream, and we will keep bringing the narratives that matter to us. And yeah, we'll pass on the mic and we will hear people out. Thank you.
So I'm not very sure who I'm addressing here, but if there are writers, screenwriters, filmmakers, aspiring filmmakers in the audience, I'd like to just say and advise that you know, whenever you're writing screenplays and there's a potential to address CSA or abuse, just to not reach for it as a trope, and to sort of do a bit of primary research, to talk to children, you know, look beyond statistics, look beyond earlier films, because sometimes we end up very unwittingly perpetuating a stereotype, a cliche, which probably would have made sense for its time, but it's important to take a medium and a kind of storytelling ahead. So whenever, to not reach for easy solutions, you're writing a character and okay, like, you know, let's make him a victim of abuse, so that justifies his behavior. And you know, to not reach for it as something that's there in your kitty, and to investigate a bit more, and to reach out to people and to have some primary inputs into your screenwriting. I think that should really make the change. I think sometimes screenwriters, even without commercial constraints, end up rehashing a lot of things because it's hardwired into them to think a certain way about characters. So whenever you cross that juncture to sort of do primary research and to figure out how exactly abuse works, to talk to people. By research, all I mean is to talk to people and to empathize more openly and see how that can rework your narrative. That's all I'll say. Thank you.
So I'm primarily an ad filmmaker, and that's where I make my money. And not that I don't enjoy advertising, I enjoy advertising as well, but really most of it is selling your soul to the devil. So you're really not satisfied because most of the time you're aware that the product that you're selling is spurious, or if you don't end up making that ad film on that particular cereal, which is actually detrimental to your health because it's made of sugar, somebody else will make that ad film. So you kind of are aware that you're doing a disservice to the society in that sense. And so public service films, right from the day one of my career, became a means to actually reclaim my soul. And I've met some really wonderful people in this space. What I do is I take money from advertising. Most of the time I take money from advertising, and I make films on various issues that are important to me or that have touched, moved, and inspired me, and I feel that it's an issue that needs to be talked about, whether it is misogyny, whether it is equality, whether it's injustice, or whether it is CSA, or whether it is child prostitution, whatever, child rights. Or the migrants, yeah, or homelessness. I mean, there are so many issues that touch me. And in each of these areas, specifically domains, I meet some wonderful, wonderful people like Smita who are doing God's work, and it puts me to shame for the kind of life that I live, because they are really out there and they are they've given their entire lives, and what we do, what I'm at least doing, is giving only a fraction of my time, a part of my time, to actually do what the society needs so badly. So I'm just so grateful that I get to be here and get to meet people like you, and you're doing wonderful work, and I meet some wonderful people like you, and we're really happy to have people like you in the society.
I feel quite speechless after this, but I just want to share one small anecdote. I happened to be part of a writing room in my writer's avatar many, many decades ago. And the day I exited that room was because the writers were sitting there and saying, "Maza nahi aa raha, chalo ek rape dal dete." You know? And I said, okay, this really is not my place or my genre or the place I want to be. And is it possible for us to create work that brings out the complexities that we are talking about, the complexities that we are dealing with every day? And that is why each one of you sitting on this panel for me is so critically important, because whether you are actually out there and opening up the boundaries, or whether you are, bringing the critiques eye over there to say, how is it and what else can be done, I love the beautiful illustrations that you have done and the animations and the films that you have created, Suhaila. Each one of you, and I've kind of had long discussions with Nivedita at one point. How is it that we can mainstream these conversations? So maybe the time is coming now that we can actually mainstream these conversations without titillation, sensationalizing, or preaching. So how is it we can get real? Because that seems to be the trope that we're talking about. How can we get real without making people leave the auditorium, which has been happening with Suhaila and me ever since all our lives. So, yeah, thanks.
All right. So, I think the way we talk about child sexual abuse in media matters because it influences lives. It shapes whether survivors are believed or whether perpetrators are held accountable, and whether society acknowledges its complicity in the silence. A huge thank you to our panelists for their insights, and for all of you for being a great audience. Let's keep pushing for better, for more responsible and survivor-centric narratives. Thank you so much. I would like to invite Jayashree ma'am and Deepak sir to please facilitate our panelists. Group photo. We'll have a group photo in front, please.
I think they should shout like the paparazzis do, right? Left, right. I don't know where to look.